Check.
This is Real People, Real Stories. The purpose of these interviews is to uplift, motivate, and encourage. And remember, these are real people with real stories. It's not your story or mine, it's their stories and their testimonies. God first and overcome by testimony.
Check. I get wins, no days off. I don't stop.
Tupac, Tupac. What two things on that? Was it true that Suge Knight used his own money to bail Tupac out of jail to sign him to death row, if you know of that? And two, did you think Tupac was ahead of his time and that they shut him down in the industry, or was that something else? Just two-part question.
Well, obviously there was a group out of Oakland called Digital Underground, and we lost Shock G.
Rest in peace.
The last couple of years. Rest in peace. He was the visionary behind Digital Underground. Do What You Like. The Humpty Dance is what they're known for. And being a humorous song and a fan of Parliament Funkadelic, a lot of people thought they were a lightweight kind of joke of a band, but he was a visionary. And they had signed Tupac, but they also told him, you gotta kind of chill for a minute, because we're on a roll. We got a hit record. We got this deal with Tommy Boy, a big independent label out of New York. And there'll be a time for you. And Tupac was so antsy and aggressive. They brought him on the road as a dancer, as a roadie, carry the bags, be a part of the entourage. And it just led to him wanting to get on the mic. The song was called Same Song, which was on an EP. And that introduced the world to Tupac. And then we promoted and put out To Apocalypse Now, which was his debut album. Now, his second and third album are the ones that really caught on. And what happened was Interscope was in the music business. Jimmy Iovine was a very successful record producer. And he teamed up with a guy named Ted Field, who was a very wealthy person, came from money, his family. They owned department stores and companies and a lot of property across America. And Ted was in the movie business and liked what he heard and saw in the music business. So he backed Jimmy and Interscope. They were completely independently funded. And he grew increasingly tired of Tupac getting arrested, getting what ultimately was a rape charge, which sent him to prison. And he was just wilding out, loved the ladies, loved to party. He was an activist. His mother and father were part of the Black Panthers. So he was very vocal, very aggressive. And when he got put in prison for the rape charges, Jimmy was just like, all right, that's enough. We got to chill. We're not in the bail business or the prison business or any of that. We got a lot of successful artists that aren't going to jail that need our support. So he was kind of put on the back burner. And obviously Death Row was in that Interscope business. Interscope was their partner, their distributor. So all those earlier records were directly on Interscope. So, Suge already being in kind of the system, said, well, if you're not going to do anything with him right now, let me see what I can do.
Wow.
And worked out the bail situation and literally signed a contract which was on a napkin. Famously, the only contract Tupac ever signed with Death Row was on a napkin at a restaurant.
Is that legally bound? Does that hold up?
Obviously his estate and his people, fought that and, kind of worked an early release out. By the time he passed, was shot in Vegas and passed, and the Machiavelli album came out literally within a few weeks of that, he was free and clear. He was out of his deal. There was no way that Suge could hold him or his masters that he had created to that napkin, deal. So there was subsequent records that have come out, but those were always controlled by the estate. Death Row may have got points on it, but ultimately Suge even lost control of the label, not paying bills and lawsuits and judgments that were against him. And some of that had to do with Harry O and his wife, Lydia Harris, who had given Suge millions of dollars when Harry O was in prison. And Suge found it very convenient to say, I don't know what you're talking about. Because it was kind of an under the table type deal. Again, there were not big contracts. And unfortunately, they had the same attorney, David Kinner. So very questionable, that Harry O had funded Death Row, but was being told by Suge, I don't know who you are, man. You got no royalties from us coming. So there was a lot of drama. And ultimately, he lost the label in a judgment of over $100 million to Lydia Harris.
Let me ask a question on that briefly. When Suge did go to prison right after the murder of Tupac, and the
MGM when he kicked that guy, he was on probation in the lobby of the MGM Grand in Vegas, and everything was obviously on security cameras, and that ultimately broke his probation, and he went to prison.
Now, where did the gentleman, the guy, Reggie Wright Jr., is it true he took over operations at Death Row after Suge was in prison?
Yeah, he kind of ran the label. Michelet was involved because she had a child with Suge. It was very messy because initially DRE had produced Michelet and they had a little relationship. And Suge was always trying to get back at people. So when DRE left, he's now with Michelet and many other women, and they had a child together. So she was kind of involved, and Reggie Wright being kind of the security guy, he was a good guy as a liaison between Suge in prison and trying to keep the label together. I mean, Snoop had left by then. DRE left first. DRE was the first one to go. So there wasn't really much, there. But they had a bit of a catalog. And there was income coming in. And of course, there was the situation of these Tupac masters.
Right.
So it was very messy. It's very controversial. There's a new documentary right now, that's really spelling out Reggie Wright's potential involvement, with a lot of the downside of Death Row. A lot of people believe he wanted to take ownership of the label. And there's still so many questions as far as the assassination of Tupac. Keefe D is in prison now, and he spoke way too freely in a lot of interviews, and the feds are holding him to his word. So who gets implicated in that? And obviously there's stories that he had a deal with Sean Puffy Combs. So if you didn't think Diddy had enough problems with the freak off parties, he's, potentially being implicated in the murder of Tupac.
Now, did anybody, you being out there on the West Coast, in LA, California, Hollywood, did anyone within the industry, as far as on the executive or business side, did Tupac or Suge, maybe Suge did, but just your opinion on what you saw, did anybody have a problem or issue on the executive, the industry side with Tupac or his message or music from your view back then when he was alive?
Well, he was very controversial. There was an artist prior to him from Oakland called Paris. If anybody knows Paris, he was also signed to Tommy Boy Records, the label that Coolio and House of Pain and Naughty by Nature and Queen Latifah and Digital Underground were all signed to. They had an arrangement with Warner Brothers. And, controversy sells to a degree, but people that work in the industry, like 9 to 5, don't want the extra baggage and extra drama of having the feds raiding their offices and tapping their phones and, you know, people being raided and arrested. So Tupac, for all his creativity and musical brilliance, was kind of a magnet for drama. And a lot of people feel that him signing to death row was his downfall.
Sending them shots is all within his mind. Talking cancer, deception, the devil, illness, and lies. Homosexuality plus drinking, smoking combined. These the ops by design. People saying he fine. Take this medicine, stay relevant. Keep sinning with pride. Nah, world's death sentence, we taking it like it's fine. Pharmaceuticals, agendas, and media got us blind. It don't matter if they say it's okay. Which one is wise? Is it trust man's word or trust in the divine?